Hello. If you come here tonight, perhaps you're ready for something quieter. Not another headline, not the buzz of a notification, not a world built from urgency and flashing light. Perhaps you're looking for stillness, to step back, not just from today, but from the entire noise of now, to slow your breath, to soften your thoughts, to let yourself drift into something older, something deeper, something very far from here. Let me take you there. Not far, just far enough to reach the banks of a river older than memory, to step into a land where the sun was a god, the moon a traveler, and time moved with the pace of water and wind. You may know Egypt from the monuments, the towering pyramids, the golden tombs, the painted eyes of pharaohs who still stare out across centuries. You may think of gods with falcon heads and crocodile jaws, of mummies sealed in stone, of hieroglyphs written in mystery and light. But this is not that Egypt. This is not the Egypt of kings and priests, of war and empire. This is the Egypt beneath the gold. This is the Egypt of the hearth fire, of the morning broom, of hands brushing flour from an apron. It is the Egypt of sleeping mats, of laughter between stone walls, of stories told at dusk when the fields fall silent. It is the Egypt of people whose names you will never know. People who baked bread and counted beans and raised children beneath the same sky that watches us still. And if you listen, truly listen, you can feel them. They are not ghosts. They are not myth. They are not gone. They are simply quiet, waiting for you in the rhythm of another life. So let's go to them. The year is somewhere around 1300 BC. The place, a village just beyond the Nile. Not a palace, not a battlefield. Just a cluster of homes built from sun-baked mudbrick, whitewashed against the heat. It is dawn. The light has not yet spilled over the eastern cliffs, but already the world is waking. Owl hear the soft rustle of linen, the clink of pottery, the distant cry of a rooster calling to the sky. The air is still cool, touched with the scent of wood smoke and earth. A dog stretches beside the doorway. A baby murmurs in her sleep. Somewhere, someone is grinding grain. The stone turns, slow and steady, like breath. And in the silence between those sounds, something older stirs, the feeling of rhythm, of order, of belonging. This won't be a lecture. It won't be fast. There is nothing to memorize. No quiz at the end. No lesson to prove. Just the gentle unfolding of a day lived long ago. So come with me, slowly. Let the noise of the modern world fall away. Let your mind step into the hush between dawn and day. And let's begin. It is early morning in ancient Egypt. The world is still mostly dark, wrapped in shades of blue and grey. Only the faintest gold begins to gather at the edges of the eastern sky, just enough to silhouette the palm trees, still and silent in the distance. In a village not far from Thebes, built close to the Nile's western bank, you wake to the sounds of life before light. A rooster calls. A donkey rustles in its stall. A grinding stone begins its slow turning. Scrape, 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 grain becoming flour beneath a practiced hand. You are lying on a mat of woven reeds, your head resting on a curved wooden headrest. The linen that covers you is soft, slightly rough at the hem, washed many times by your mother or sister and laid out to dry in the sun. The floor beneath you is cool, made of packed earth, swept smooth. A few sandals lie by the doorway, their soles stiff with dust. The house is quiet but not silent. In the next room, someone moves carefully. Perhaps your father, tightening the strap on his tool bag, or your mother, stirring embers in the hearth. The fire has not yet caught, but the scent of last night's ash and early morning smoke hangs gently in the air. You sit up slowly, stretching your arms toward the sky before it turns gold. There is no hurry. The rhythm of this day has been lived 1,000 times before. Before anything else, you tend to the shrine. It is not grand, just a small ledge tucked into the wall, its surface swept clean. Upon it sit figures carved from wood and clay. Bes, with his wide grin and lion's mane, protector of the home. Taweret, part hippo, part crocodile, guarding childbirth and dreams. And perhaps a small symbol of Anubis, carved in obsidian, guardian of transition. You light a bit of incense, a coil of dried resin wrapped in linen. The smoke rises slowly, spiraling in the cool air. You whisper a prayer, not memorized but remembered, passed to you in low tones at night or in morning hush. Not asking for much, just for safety, for peace, for another day to unfold gently. Then, barefoot, you move through the courtyard. The village around you is beginning to stir. A neighbor sweeps her steps with a brush of palm fibers, sending little puffs of dust into the light. 2 children chase a chicken, laughing in half whispers. An old man carries a pot to the well, nodding to you as he passes, his sandals scuffing against the stones. In your own courtyard, the hearth is coming to life. The fire is catching now, fed with palm fronds and dried dung. A pot is placed on the flame, a small breakfast of barley porridge, thickened with lentils or sweetened with dates if they are available. A girl, perhaps your sister, kneads dough in a low bowl. Her hands are dusted with flour, her tunic pulled back with a cord. The smell of yeast and grain fills the morning air. She sings quietly to herself, a half-forgotten tune about rain in the desert and the kindness of cats. Elsewhere, on the rooftop, a boy lays out strips of linen to dry, freshly washed, now stiffening in the breeze. From there, he can see the whole village begin to move. A man leads his oxen to the edge of a field. A woman draws water into a large jar, balancing it on her hip with practiced grace. The sun crests the horizon. Its light touches the tops of the houses first, then trickles down into the alleyways and doorways, spilling warmth onto the earth. Walls begin to glow, cloth brightens, shadows lengthen and soften, and everything, the noise, the heat, the labor, still lies ahead. But this moment, this quiet rising, belongs to the village alone. A cat brushes against your leg and disappears through a crack in the wall. You take a breath of wood smoke, of grain, of morning, and the day begins. Now the sun is rising more fully, spilling gold into every corner. Its light pours through the open ceiling of the courtyard, catching on the curves of pots, on the edges of woven baskets, on the loose strands of linen tied around waiting bundles of herbs. Inside the home, the real work of the day is beginning. It is a world shaped by hands, hands that have learned the grain of wood, the texture of clay, the right weight of flour between the fingers. A woman kneels at the grinding stone, rolling the upper stone back and forth in long, smooth strokes. Her shoulders move in rhythm, steady and strong. The wheat beneath her darkens slightly with each pass, becoming flour. Nearby, a child gathers the sifted dust, helping to collect it into a jar with practiced patience. The fire in the courtyard burns low but steady. Another woman tends a flat loaf stuck to the inner wall of the oven. The bread hisses slightly as it cooks, edges curling and crisping. She peels it free with a wooden paddle, sets it on a reed mat to cool, then prepares the next ball of dough. Overhead, linen garments flap in the breeze. They've been scrubbed against stone, rinsed 3 times, and laid out carefully in rows. The sunlight bleaches them to a pale cream. A young girl checks each one for tears. If there are any, she'll mend them with a curved bone needle before the afternoon. A child toddles across the courtyard with a clay doll in her hands. It has painted eyes and a broad smile. The child clutches it by the neck, then sets it down gently, offering it a few crumbs of bread. She speaks to it in whispers, mimicking the tone her mother uses in prayer. The home is not silent, but the sounds are low, purposeful. A broom of palm fibers sweeps the earth floor in long arcs. A woman rubs oil into a wooden chest, her hands moving in circles. A clay bowl is carefully repaired with resin and linen, the cracks sealed with practiced precision. Each task here is small, but none of them are rushed. There is pride in the order of things, in the jar labelled with a mark for beer, in the basket divided for lentils and peas, in the stool that does not wobble, even after a decade of use. The household is not separate from the sacred. It is the sacred. There is a small amulet tied above the doorway, shaped like a djed pillar for stability. A thin line of natron is sprinkled near the threshold, warding off insects and spirits alike. In a quiet moment, someone lights a pinch of incense and fans it gently toward the family shrine. You hear a neighbor's voice calling softly over the wall. A short exchange follows. Bread is passed, or a tool, or simply a greeting. These moments tie the village together as surely as the ropes that bind roof beams and door hinges. This is not grandeur. It is not history made visible in stone, but it is life, whole and present. And in these motions, repeated with care and without haste, something more than survival is made, something permanent. By now, the sun sits higher in the sky. Its rays stretch over the rooftops, reaching into courtyards, warming the walls of workshops and temples alike. The stillness of morning softens into the hum of labor, the quiet murmur of a village in motion. This is the hour of work, not toil, not frenzy, but the practiced effort of hands that know their purpose. In a corner of the village, just beyond the homes, you find the craftsmen. Stonecutters, seated on low blocks, chip away at limestone with copper chisels and rounded wooden mallets. They aren't carving tombs today, only door frames, small statues, maybe a stele for a nearby shrine. One man smooths the surface of a stone face, his thumb brushing away dust before he deepens the line of an eye. There's no blueprint, just memory, symmetry, reverence. A sculptor pauses to sharpen his chisel, dragging it across sandstone with short, sure strokes. A breeze lifts the dust from his lap and carries it toward the fields. Nearby, potters shape vessels on simple, foot-spun wheels. A woman uses her fingers to coax a pot upward, forming a narrow neck. She dips her hand in water to soften the clay, then flattens the base with a paddle. Each pot must be even, each rim smooth. These will hold oil or beer, and one cracked jar could mean a week of waste. On a woven mat, her daughter paints another pot in red ochre, using a thin brush made from bundled reeds. She adds a spiral, then a lotus, then a single wavy line to symbolize water. Across the path, under a shaded awning, the scribes are already at work. One man sits cross-legged before a low wooden table. In one hand, a fine-tipped brush. In the other, a strip of papyrus. He writes carefully, grain tallies, tax records, the names of men assigned to carry goods downriver. The brush dips into black ink, then red. Each color has its role. Black for words, red for headings, dates, danger. Beside him, a student practices on a potsherd, copying the phrase, "To know how to speak is to know how to lead." Strokes are uneven, but careful. The scribe corrects him gently, guiding his hand, then nods approval. Even further beyond, past the well and toward the open road, laborers work beneath the brightening sky. They carry baskets of dried mud bricks on their shoulders. They patch the corner of a house where the rain weakened the wall. They mix new clay with straw and stomp it barefoot in a shallow pit, laughing softly at the coolness of the mud between their toes. The work is hard, but it is shared. There is no shouting, no whip, no rush. A man sings as he lays the bricks, just a few notes between lines of sweat. A water carrier passes, offering his jug, which is wrapped in wet cloth to keep it cool. They drink in turns. No thanks are needed. The gesture is older than speech. Here, the physical and the spiritual are never far apart. A blacksmith pauses to whisper a protective verse over his forge. A weaver knots a thread 3 times before cutting it, a habit taught by her grandmother. A pot is set in the sun, with a date leaf across its opening, not just to keep insects out, but to invite blessing. In ancient Egypt, to work is not merely to survive. It is to repeat a sacred pattern, to hold the memory of hands that shaped the world before yours, and to add your own touch to that endless rhythm. As the sun climbs, the pace does not quicken. It holds, firm, patient, timeless. As mid-morning fades into late morning, the village center begins to pulse with quiet activity. This is not a city. There are no walls, no gates, no towering columns here. Just the gentle, sun-washed rhythm of a tight-knit community. And at its heart, an open square ringed by shaded stalls, baskets, benches, and quiet laughter. This is where the world connects. Under a broad canopy of palm fronds, a woman lays out onions in bunches, their roots still dusted with river soil. Next to her, another offers handmade sandals, their leather soles stiff but newly softened with oil. A cloth-covered tray holds dried figs and honey cakes. The smell is sweet, grounding, ancient. Children dart between the stalls, laughing, dodging, trailing behind parents who speak in low, familiar tones to neighbors and cousins. A boy carries a jug of beer balanced in a loop of rope. He walks carefully, not out of fear, but pride. He's old enough now to carry something valuable. Trade happens slowly, not in silver usually, not here, but in goods, in favors, in trust. A few fish for a jar of honey, a spindle of thread for a length of cloth, a freshly shaped pot in exchange for one filled with grain. But it's not just goods that move here. It's news, it's stories, it's small blessings passed like coin. A woman laughs as she retells a dream about crocodiles dancing in a temple courtyard. A man listens, then shakes his head, offering her a sprig of basil for luck. 2 elders argue gently over the best way to soothe a colicky infant. A girl hums the first bars of a harvest song, and someone nearby joins in. Everything here is woven with relationship. People remember who borrowed a jar last week, who helped carry water when the rope broke, who brought a gift after the last flood. These memories shape the village more than stone ever could. And overseeing it all, from the edge of the square, sits the foreman. He is not a ruler, not a soldier, but he is known. He listens, settles disputes, keeps order with few words and fewer gestures. Today, he hears 2 neighbors. One claims a fig tree leans too far, dropping fruit into her courtyard. The other says, it's always been this way. They speak quietly, respectfully. The foreman looks to the scribe seated beside him. Just the boy, really, who records the matter on a scrap of ostrakhan. The ruling is fair, gentle, no punishment, just a boundary stone to be adjusted. A smile is exchanged. It is enough. The scribe marks the decision with care, the characters steady even in their simplicity. Nearby, a small altar of stones sits at the base of a sycamore. Someone has left a slice of bread there, fresh and still warm. A child bows quickly before hurrying away. This too is part of the marketplace, a space for the sacred and the ordinary to meet. As the sun climbs higher, the square begins to thin. Baskets are packed away, tables covered. One final trade is made, linen thread for a tiny carved amulet shaped like a frog. It's a charm for fertility, or luck, or both. No one says. By noon, the square is almost silent again. The foreman stands, stretches. The scribe gathers his materials. A mother calls to her son. A cat climbs into a basket and curls into the shade. And the village exhales. The morning's work is done, and the day begins to slow. Now, the sun stands directly overhead. Its light is no longer golden, but white, bright and steady, pressing against the earth. Even the birds pause in their flight. The breeze slows. The village, which hummed with energy just an hour ago, begins to retreat into silence. This is the hour of rest, not imposed, not ritualized, simply understood. The streets empty. Tools are set aside. The fields are left in peace. Labor pauses, not in defeat, but in reverence for the heat and the cycle it brings. In each home, meals are prepared once more. They are not elaborate, just enough to nourish and comfort. A bowl of thick porridge made from emmer wheat, sweetened with dates or honey if the household can spare it. A cucumber sliced with care. Bread torn again with hands. A small dish of lentils, dark and fragrant with coriander. The family gathers in the shade of the courtyard. Not always together. Some remain within the house, others atop the roof. But they are close. Their presence felt, even in silence. Children eat first, elders slowly. A girl offers her mother the last bit of goat cheese. A boy dips his bread into the communal bowl without asking. The rules are known. No words are needed. And when the food is done, the stillness deepens. A basin of water is passed around. Hands are washed. A few drops dripped onto feet. One woman fans herself with a palm frond, the rhythm slow and steady. Another strokes the back of her daughter's hair until her breathing slows. On the rooftops, mats are laid in the shadow of walls. Some sleep there, away from the warm interior of the home. The breeze moves softly above, enough to shift the linen curtains and carry the scent of sun-warmed clay. This is the time for small rituals. A man refills the oil lamp near the family shrine. A mother knots a charm of blue beads around her sleeping child's wrist, each bead blessed for protection. A girl kneels beside a figure of Taweret and whispers a request, her voice barely audible. Let the baby be strong. Let my brother come home. Down the alley, a priest apprentice stops at a simple shrine set into the village wall. He places a smear of beer-soaked bread beneath it, then pours a small libation of water from his jar. His prayer is silent. The act is enough. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is wasted. Even a fly landing on a loaf is brushed away gently, not slapped. Even a cracked bowl is set aside for mending. Everything has purpose. And so the village sleeps, not in deep slumber, but in a state of held breath. A pause, a sacred suspension between the labors of the morning and the regathering of energy to come. You, too, lie back now. The sun's heat fades behind the shelter of the wall. The mat beneath you is warm, but not uncomfortable. The air smells of dust, time, and cooling earth. And in that scent, that silence, that stillness, you feel it. This is not just a break. It is a devotion. a ceremony offered not to gods or kings, but to balance, to rhythm, to peace. As the sun begins to shift westward, light returns to the courtyards, softer now, slanting through the alleyways and across the rooftops. The village breathes in again. The stillness of midday gives way to the gentle motion of afternoon. Not hurried, not heavy, just returning. This is the time for smaller tasks, closer to home. The work of memory, of teaching, of care. A mother kneels beside a basin of clothes, scrubbing linen with smooth river stones. She hums as she works, a tune older than words, carried down from her own mother and hers before. Her daughter watches, then mimics, splashing more than scrubbing, but learning all the same. Nearby, a boy sits cross-legged in the dust, practicing characters in the shade. He holds a potsherd in one hand, a reed pen in the other. His tongue peeks from the corner of his mouth in concentration. The words are simple. His name, a prayer, a proverb. But he writes them with great care. Each mark is a small act of permanence. Behind him, his grandfather sits on a stool, carving a wooden toy. Not for trade, not for ceremony, just for joy. The figure takes shape slowly. A crocodile, jaws wide, tail curved. It will be painted later with ochre and charcoal, given wheels made from repurposed pottery discs. The boy will keep it by his bed until he outgrows it. Then it will be passed on. This is how knowledge moves here. Not in formal lessons or books, but in shadowed corners, over shared tasks, in stories told during chores. A grandmother shows her granddaughter how to knot thread so it won't unravel. A father explains the phases of the moon by pointing to the sky and then to a bowl of water. Even the quietest gestures carry meaning. In a shaded room, a healer prepares a remedy from the family stores. Crushed garlic and honey wrapped in linen to draw out infection. A poultice of willow bark and mud pressed gently onto a sprained ankle. He chants as he works, the words half medical, half mystical. The rhythm matters as much as the ingredients. The lines between the physical and the spiritual are never rigid here. To bandage a wound is to invoke protection. To sweep a courtyard is to bless the home. To stir lentils with care is to nourish more than the body. Elsewhere, a few children rehearse a small play they've invented. A tale about the gods, perhaps, or animals who trick one another. Their costumes are just linen wraps and old basket lids, but their voices rise with conviction. An older sibling corrects a line. Another adds a new ending. It doesn't matter if the facts are wrong. What matters is that they tell it, that they remember, that they participate in the slow weaving of their culture into time. And just beyond the village edge, the river glints again in the sunlight. A young man sits alone, sketching the water on a piece of discarded papyrus. He isn't trained, but his lines are sure. He captures the curve of the reeds, the slope of the bank, the way the wind ripples the surface like a silk cloth pulled gently through the air. This too is part of the afternoon, not idle, but sacred in its simplicity, the kind of work that honors what is seen and what is felt, and what must be passed on, not just through objects, but through ways of being. And so the village continues, quietly preparing for the night to come. Evening approaches with grace. The day does not end in a hurry here. It softens, like a song fading into its final notes. The heat eases, the light shifts from white to amber, and long shadows return, stretching across the ground like fingers reaching for rest. In the homes, the fire is lit once more. This time, not for heat or industry, but for food. The hearth glows with gentle light. A pot simmers low, releasing the familiar scent of stewed lentils and crushed herbs. A woman adds coriander, tasting with her finger and nodding to herself. Another fans the coals, sending a brief burst of flame skyward. The family gathers. Sitting cross-legged on woven mats, they pass bowls from hand to hand. Bread, olives, cucumbers, dried fish when it's available. The bread is torn, not sliced. The food is shared, not portioned. There is no ceremony, but there is ritual. Someone laughs softly. A child tells a story from earlier, about a chicken that refused to stay in the yard, about a neighbor who mistook a frog for a snake. Laughter ripples through the group, low and warm. And then, when the food is finished, the stories begin in earnest. They are not read. They are remembered. One elder speaks of a time the Nile rose too high and brought fish all the way to the rooftops. Another tells the tale of how the stars became gods, and how Ra rides his boat through the underworld each night, battling chaos so that morning might come again. A child listens, eyes wide, chewing on the corner of a linen wrap. Another, too young to follow, curls in her mother's lap, lulled by the sound of the words rather than their meaning. A father tells a quiet joke from his own childhood, and even the grandmother, stoic and sharp-eyed, lets out a rare, wheezing chuckle. Meanwhile, the light continues to fade. One by one, the oil lamps are lit. Small clay vessels filled with castor oil, with wicks made of twisted flax. Their glow flickers on the walls, painting the home with moving light. The faces of those gathered seem to shift, becoming softer, more mythic, as if they too are being drawn gently into memory. In the corner, the household shrine awaits its offering. Bread is placed beside a small cup of beer. A figure of Bez is touched lightly on the brow. A prayer is whispered, not loud, not public, just a few words offered into the space between breaths. It is enough. This is sacred space. Not just the shrine, but the entire room, the fire, the meal, the hands still holding one another after the story's end. Outside, the village quiets. One by one, neighbors settle into their homes. A distant lullaby floats on the air, sung off-key but with love. The sounds of chickens and goats become still. Even the dogs sleep, their ears twitching in dreams. And overhead, the stars, the Milky Way, which the Egyptians call the celestial Nile, stretches across the sky. It mirrors the river below. It holds the souls of the departed. It reminds those who remain that they are never alone. The goddess Nut arches over the earth, her arms and legs the night itself. She swallows the sun now, as she does every evening. It will travel through her body, and she will birth it again in the morning. This too is a story, and it is being lived. You sit quietly now, wrapped in warmth and linen and the final hush of the day, and you feel it, the holiness of this moment, the beauty of an ordinary night in a life that will never be recorded in books, but is etched into the rhythm of the world all the same. Night has come, fully now, not rushed, not sudden, but complete. The lamps burn low. The fire in the hearth is down to a few glowing coals. The air is cooler, touched with the scent of clay, of distant reeds, of the stars themselves. And beyond the walls of your home, the Nile flows. You cannot see it in the dark, but you can feel it, steady, unhurried, as eternal as the sky above it. The same river that carried silt to the fields, that fed the barley for your bread, and the water for your child's first bath. The same river that ferried kings and grain and dreams. But here, now, it holds only silence, and stars, and memory. You lie down once more on your mat. The woven reeds creak gently beneath you. A linen wrap covers your legs. A headrest cradles your neck. Not soft, but familiar. It is enough. The village around you is sleeping. You hear a dog sigh in its dreams, the faint flutter of cloth in the breeze. Somewhere, a pot settles on stone with a soft clink. That's all. Everything else has gone quiet. And in this quiet, you begin to drift. Not away, but into a life that was lived without spectacle, without conquest, a life without fame, but full of meaning. You have seen their morning prayers, their midday silence, their evening laughter. You've stood beside a boy carving a toy, a mother baking bread, a grandmother tying herbs into bundles. You've heard their songs, learned their proverbs, walked their dusty paths, and you felt it beneath the noise of history, the real heartbeat of a civilization. Not pyramids, people who lived close to the land, close to one another, close to time itself. And now, as sleep begins to reach for you, you become part of that world, not as a visitor, but as someone returning. Someone who has always carried a piece of this rhythm, this silence, this beauty within you. Let it hold you now. Let it wrap around you like linen washed in river water and sun. Let the Nile carry your thoughts out of the present, out of the hurry, out of the noise. Let yourself sleep. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are home.